Big news out of NASA today. President Trump has officially renominated billionaire entrepreneur and private astronaut Jared Isaacman to take over as NASA administrator, replacing Secretary Shawn Duffy. So, what kind of shakeup could this bring to NASA's direction? And what might it mean for SpaceX and the wider commercial space sector? Let's dive in. The announcement came Tuesday evening via the president's own social media platform, Truth Social. The post read, "Shawn Duffy has done an outstanding job as acting administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. This evening, I am proud to nominate Jared Isaacman, a proven business leader, philanthropist, pilot, and astronaut, as NASA administrator. Jared's passion for space, his first-hand astronaut experience, and his drive to push the boundaries of discovery, unlock the secrets of the universe, and grow the new space economy make him the perfect choice to lead NASA into a bold new era." In response, Isaacman wrote, "Thank you, Mr. President, for this incredible opportunity. It will be an honor to serve my country under your leadership. I also want to thank Secretary Duffy, who has managed NASA skillfully while juggling so many other major responsibilities. The support from the space community," he added, "has been overwhelming. I'm not sure how I've earned the trust of so many, but I'll do everything I can to live up to those expectations." The decision comes just months after Trump withdrew an earlier nomination of Isaacman, an ally of billionaire Elon Musk, for the very same role back in May. Just a week before Isaacman's initial confirmation was expected, Trump posted, "After a full review of previous associations, I am hereby withdrawing the nomination of Jared Isaacman to lead NASA. I will soon name a new nominee who is missionally aligned and will put America first in space." Isaacman's first nomination was rescinded only days after Musk's formal departure from the White House. The SpaceX CEO's temporary role as a special government employee, heading the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, had stirred internal conflicts within the administration and irritated several of Trump's advisors. Following that decision, the president appointed Shawn Duffy, then Secretary of Transportation, as acting NASA administrator until a permanent chief could be selected. Now, while Trump's post praised Duffy for doing an incredible job as interim administrator, his recent television appearances have caused quite a stir. Duffy's remarks questioning SpaceX's Starship readiness for Artemis 3 drew heavy criticism. During a CNBC interview, Duffy said he believed SpaceX, which holds a $2.9 billion contract to build NASA's lunar lander, was falling behind schedule. He warned that this could jeopardize the U.S. goal of returning humans to the moon before China amid an intensifying new space race. "So, I'm going to reopen the contract," he said. "I'll let other space companies compete with SpaceX." That didn't land well. The next morning, Musk fired back online, pointing out that SpaceX is the only company to successfully human certify a new orbital spacecraft in the United States. He reposted critiques of Duffy, even mocking him by calling him Shawn Dummy, accusing him of having a 2-digit IQ, and sharing a flood of immature, but admittedly funny, memes. Meanwhile, Isaacman kept things professional, saying he never assumed he'd be renominated, and that he respected Secretary Duffy, adding that he'd always appreciated their exchanges. "I'm grateful to my supporters and to President Trump for the consideration. More than anything, I just hope to see NASA continue to shine as the world's premier space agency," he said. So, now that Jared Isaacman might be back at NASA, does that automatically mean things will start looking better for SpaceX? Well, not exactly. This isn't the first time Starship's role in the Artemis program has stirred debate. During a recent NASA hearing, former Administrator Jim Bridenstine raised serious concerns about the complexity and practicality of the current Artemis architecture, particularly its heavy reliance on SpaceX's Starship, the massive, fully reusable rocket designed to serve as the lunar lander. One of Bridenstine's main concerns was orbital refueling, a critical part of SpaceX's long-term plan that so far has never actually been done. There's still a lot of uncertainty about how many tanker starships would be needed to fully refuel a single lunar vehicle in orbit. He also questioned whether Starship could be certified for human flight in time to safely carry astronauts to the moon, given how complex the Artemis missions are. And on top of that, he pointed out the sheer number of launches, landings, and in-orbit operations required to make it all work. Interestingly, during that 2-hour hearing, neither Bredenstein nor anyone else offered clear solutions to those issues. But Isaacman did push back on some of the criticism, especially regarding orbital refueling, saying, "What I think is mistaken, in my humble view, is criticizing the complexity of orbital refueling. Both Blue Origin's Mk2 lander and SpaceX's Starship rely on it. Private industry is investing heavily in the capability, so it's not entirely on the shoulders of taxpayers. And when it works, it will revolutionize operations far beyond lunar missions." He added, "If all we wanted was another Apollo-style LEM, that would have simplified things. But are we trying to relive 1969 or build the technologies that extend America's reach to explore, innovate, and defend in the high ground of space?" So even though Isaacman didn't outright take SpaceX's side, his point landed well. The US doesn't want another flags and footprints mission. That's been done. The goal now is to go further, to build a sustainable lunar base, one that requires sending huge amounts of cargo and infrastructure to the moon's surface. For that kind of mission, refueling technology and a heavy lift reusable system like Starship could make all the difference in cost, speed, and sustainability. Another key piece worth mentioning is the 62-page Project Athena memo, a document outlining Jared Isaacman's long-term vision for NASA, reportedly shared with a senior administration official earlier this summer. The memo laid out some bold ideas: a sweeping reorganization of NASA's centers across the country, outsourcing certain divisions' science work, and even phasing out the space launch system after the third Artemis mission to the moon. It also pushed for NASA to develop nuclear electric propulsion for future crewed missions to Mars, and to expand public-private partnerships to launch more frequent, lower-cost interplanetary science missions. Critics were quick to pounce on the science-as-a-service section of the proposal, claiming it would strip NASA of its Earth observation responsibilities, a core part of its charter. But Isaacman defended the idea, explaining that it wasn't meant to cut NASA's Earth science work, but to strengthen it by integrating commercial satellite data. He described the memo as a living plan, a framework for reforming an agency often criticized in GAO reports for inefficiency. His goal, he said, was to streamline and empower NASA, moving from drawn-out reorganizations to a single data-driven transformation that reduces bureaucracy and links leadership directly to engineers, researchers, and technicians. Departments would align tightly with mission objectives, enabling faster decision-making. One example he gave: relocating all aircraft operations to Armstrong, creating a unified aviation branch where planes like the T-38 would deploy to regional detachments like JSC. This reorganization, he argued, would free up NASA's budget from aging infrastructure and redirect resources to mission-critical needs. Most importantly, it would help revive a culture of urgency, ownership, and calculated risk, the kind that once defined American leadership in space. Isaacman's vision goes even further. His plan calls for putting more astronauts into orbit, reviving the old payload specialist program, and fully delivering on Artemis's goal of returning Americans to the moon, not just to visit, but to stay. Once that foundation is established, resources would pivot toward next-generation technologies: nuclear propulsion, active cryogenic cooling, and surface power systems for long-duration missions. The plan doesn't outright cancel Gateway or the Space Launch System, but instead proposes redirecting those assets toward nuclear propulsion research once their current objectives are complete. It also suggests making the Orion capsule launch capable on multiple rocket platforms, improving flexibility across programs. Since that plan circulated, new congressional funding for Artemis has clarified several of the earlier uncertainties Isaacman had flagged. On the topic of the orbital economy, Isaacman advocates for extending the life of the International Space Station, streamlining research access, and forming stronger partnerships with private industry to build a sustainable commercial presence in low Earth orbit, a key stepping stone for future private space stations. He also outlines NASA's role as a force multiplier for science, leveraging the agency's funding and technical expertise to increase mission frequency, reduce costs, and collaborate with universities and commercial data providers. Instead of building every satellite from scratch, NASA could purchase existing Earth observation data from private firms and reinvest the savings into planetary exploration. Isaacman emphasized that this approach isn't anti-science. In fact, he's gone on record defending cornerstone programs like Chandra, and even offered personal support for a Hubble reboost. He also envisions NASA becoming a training hub for the commercial era, creating what he calls a Starfleet Academy, consolidating mission control operations into a unified NORAD of peaceful space, and investing heavily in AI, modern IT infrastructure, and upgrades to the deep space network. Isaacman insists his plan favors no single vendor and cancels no major programs. Instead, he describes it as a roadmap for innovation, collaboration, and renewed exploration. "I love NASA," he said. "I love my country, and I want to be part of the solution." The Planetary Society's Director of Government Relations noted that both the Project Athena document and Isaacman's public remarks suggest he'd focus on getting NASA more value for its money by outsourcing additional work to private companies and universities. The idea is that this would free NASA to take on riskier, high-impact missions, the kind that push the boundaries of human exploration, like nuclear propulsion or probes to the farthest corners of the solar system, projects private companies might hesitate to fund on their own. But as Corrali pointed out, NASA is already highly commercialized. He cited that about 85% of NASA's work is currently done through private contractors. So if the plan reduces the remaining 15% of internal NASA work, while still expecting the agency to lead the most complex, one-of-a-kind missions, that could be a difficult balance to strike. He added that NASA already relies heavily on outside partnerships through programs like the Commercial Lunar Payload Services, CLPS, which funds robotic moon landers, and Simplex, which supports small planetary missions. But the results so far have been mixed. 4 out of 5 CLPS missions have failed, and all 3 SIMPLEX launches have ended unsuccessfully. A fourth, the Mars-bound Escapade mission, could fly as soon as next Sunday. Behind the scenes, several former NASA officials have quietly admitted that Isaacman might actually be the best nominee the Trump administration could realistically put forward right now. While they see some of his Project Athena proposals as overly optimistic or difficult to implement in the real world, they also agree it's refreshing that he has a clear, actionable vision, something NASA hasn't always had in recent years. Meanwhile, Isaacman's predecessor, Shawn Duffy, hasn't escaped criticism during his short tenure as acting administrator. His outspoken style and public clashes with Musk didn't exactly win him many allies inside the space community. Still, before Isaacman can officially take the reins, he'll have to get through Senate confirmation, where Republican figures like Texas Senator Ted Cruz, a longtime defender of NASA's SLS rocket, could challenge him over his close ties to SpaceX and Elon Musk. But honestly, Jared Isaacman might be exactly the kind of leader NASA needs right now. And plenty of people seem to agree. Sure, some of his ideas sound ambitious, maybe even unrealistic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. NASA was built on ambition. At this point, the agency needs bold, forward-looking goals, not another plan that simply checks the budget box. It needs someone who still believes in what NASA was meant to be: a beacon of exploration, a frontier of discovery, and a reminder that taking risks and reaching further is part of who we are.
I'm-
Because in the end, that's what NASA has always been about.